This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I'm your host, Eva Fulton. In this show, we explore the incredible journeys of resilience, healing, and transformation. In each episode, we will sit down with individuals who have faced unimaginable struggles and turned their pain into power, heartbreak into hope, and their challenges into meaningful change and finding new purpose in life. Through candid conversations and inspiring stories, we will uncover how pain, whether emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual, can be the catalyst for profound growth and a deeper sense of purpose. So if you are looking for motivation, insight, and real stories of triumph over adversity, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey from pain to purpose. Let's give veterans a voice through military broadcast talk.
Hey, Darrell, Chaplain Darrell Hartley, how are you doing? Yeah, no audio, sir. Your mic's not working. Nope, sorry. I'm co-host. Hey, folks, this is Eva Fulton, your hostess of the Pain to Purpose radio show. I have a guest host with me this week, Chaplain Darrell Hartley, and we have quite a conversation we're going to have today. I don't know if he's still having some mic problems. I'm having my own interference problems. Sorry, we're working through this. You want to try and talk again? It's not letting you. You're going to have to do something in the settings. Go into the gearbox and the settings, and or sometimes go out and come back in. Yeah, I'm sorry, I hear nothing. Go out and come back in. And you may just have to come in through the guest side instead. I sent you that link. Sorry, folks, this is live. Sometimes this happens. We'll get it figured out and get him in. While we're waiting for him to rejoin us, I thought I'd go ahead and share what we have coming up in future shows. I have quite a guest list set up already. So next week, I'll be on site in West Virginia at the Rally for Vets race. That's the summit race. And yep, I think Chaplain's joining us. So then I have Brian Sims coming up on October 18th, Bryce Hansen on October 25th, Ricky Ritchie, November 1st. I have another remote or record on November 8th. That one is to be determined. I've got an event in the morning. That's the DCVA stand down. And but the afternoon, not quite sure how I'm going to navigate that since I will be off site up there. And then we've got Bryce Gibson on November 15th and Doug Peterson on November 22nd. So we have quite a lineup that is scheduled through November 22nd. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? Am I counting that? 7 weeks worth of guests lined up, Darrell. Can you believe that? Isn't that amazing? Oh, still no audio, sir. Still no audio. You choose to mute yourself. So try to unmute yourself again. Otherwise, you're going to have to disconnect and reconnect your mic. Maybe you got it plugged in wrong. Can you hear me? You can hear me fine. Okay, I can read lips. But I can't hear you at all. Did you try the guest link, the second one that I sent you? You tried everything? Okay, I heard an echo of me. All right. Try rebooting your computer. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do is just reboot. Sometimes this happens, folks. Y'all be patient. Well, so we do have an interesting topic to cover today. We're going to be covering moral injury, and I'll catch you up. You know, I am one of those federal employees, and I'm furloughed right now. So I kind of have some extra time on my hands, and I'm also working on my dissertation. So nice feedback from my chair and working through the chapter 2 edits. I'm pretty excited. Nothing's too outrageous on the request for these changes. So that is pretty cool. I'll be able to go ahead and get that submitted and put it in the doctoral record and move on to chapter 3 next week. Which is not so bad since I have some time on my hands. I'm not too terribly upset about things. This is kind of working as a win-win for me, giving me some free days, not working, to be able to work on my dissertation. And I really couldn't be happier. The last couple of days I spent out on the Appalachian Trail. That's really my go-to, getting out and enjoying what nature has to bring to us. And I'm sure some of you are noticing this little scrape on my forehead. Actually kind of have a slight black eye. Was not anticipating this, of course, at all. But it's a little nasty scrape, a little bit of a black eye, my first shiner. I don't feel too bad. I've made it to my 50s and got my first black eye. And this is how it happened, doing something I enjoy. But, you know, sometimes that's how things happen. I even had my hiking poles and just tripped and fell over a rock. And I couldn't catch myself fast enough. So, you know, that's just that's just how things happen. And I did some good self-care. I was about 2,000 steps away from the shelter on the AT. And I made sure that I didn't go to sleep. I fortunately you can take a selfie picture with your phone, and I didn't bleed too much. I had some trauma oil that I was able to put on, I assessed what my injury was. It's a little tender, not too bad, but the trauma oil, I think, really helped to mitigate some of the bruising that I could have had. Obviously, I didn't put it on my eye. The eyelid itself, that's where you can probably see some of the, beyond just the eyeshadow that I have on, that there's some deeper color on my left eye. But that's where that came from. I was completely by myself. The shelter host and the husband and wife happened to stop by while I was there in the evening. The female looked at it. She thought that it was really mostly just superficial as well. So I did at least have somebody else look at it and made sure that it was okay. Hey, Terry. Terry's dropping by and saying hi while we wait for Darrell to reconnect. So sorry, we're having some technical difficulties before we can get started with the main part of the show. And so anyways, I had already gotten to the shelter by 10:30, 11. It was really pretty early in the day. I'd already knocked out 3.5 miles, and it was just a good place to stop. So it was a win-win. I wasn't really about trying to knock out miles the past few days. I just was enjoying the journey and was able to get some writing done. So it was really kind of a win-win for me. Practice some fire starting skills. I still got it. It's nice when you have good tools. I have a fire starter, a special fire starter thing that I found and like. There he is. Let's see if we can hear him now.
Of course you can hear me.
Yay! Here he is. So I'm just filling in and telling about my journey of the bump on the head thing. And, but leading into what you and I had talked about, that there is a point to telling the story about my bruising on my forehead and the black eye, the scratch. And I was just getting to the point of how it relates to what we're talking about in the moral injury side of things, and our topic covering. Oh, I lost him again. Oh no. He'll come right back, I'm sure. Something happened. So the point, the point about what I'm bringing up on this bruising aspect of things is that this is a physical injury that you can see. And when Darrell joins us, here he's popping back. When Darrell joins us, he's here. That this injury on my face is a visible thing, but moral injury is something that's not quite so visible. So I don't know. Do you want to jump in, Darrell, and say hi, and then kind of start addressing in your assessment in clinical terms of things, what is moral injury?
Well, everyone, my name is Chaplain Dr. Darrell Hartley. I am an addictions counselor by profession, a chaplain by profession, hospice specifically, an executive coach, and a peer mentor. And of course, dealing with the military populations of veterans, you get to see firsthand in real time how people either navigate towards or away from moral injury. Even I was talking about this, and it's a specifically sensitive subject and topic for us because we know people who are addressing moral injury right now, as well as ourselves on some levels. So it never leaves you. You can just manage it. There was a football phrase back in the day says, you can never hope to stop and contain them. You can never maybe stop what this is, but you can contain it in such a way. What is that word? Quarantine back in the day. You can quarantine this and then attempt to just elevate to a place where there's more comfort, and you can have more favor, not only with what you're addressing, but with yourself. Moral injury for me, often it's a psychological thing that you haven't truly addressed previously, but you're attempting to do now. And now that you do have a tool belt, a toolbox, a tool shed, and a warehouse that you can keep re-upping, that your symptoms can be minimized, reduced, and hopefully at some point vanquished entirely, then you're on to something. But if you do nothing, nothing will happen. What did you say earlier about doing nothing, Eva? What type of action?
Doing no action is an action.
Is an action. Yes. Yes.
And it's sad. I went ahead and copied into the chat in case anybody happens to watch this later. It's the APA, the American Psychological Association's last paper on addressing moral injury from a clinical practice, and that's their sample chapter. I also have another one that where Harvard is recognizing that it is an issue too. I'm going to go ahead and post this over in the chat as well. And I was going to actually share the screen so I can, because I wanted to get back to how I even came across this topic to begin with was way back when, believe it or not. But I'm kind of playing this as a reverse engineering the way we're talking about the topic, because this is the latest information. So they describe, this is from Harvard School of Public Health. They define moral injury as a psychological harm incurred by committing, witnessing, or being subject to actions that violates one's moral code. Like I said, it's been recognized by the APA, and that the APA included moral problem in the newest version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which for us is a pretty key thing for veterans who have experienced combat. And I'm going to get back now. Let me unshare that page. I think I got it. I think I got that link shared out there on the chat. I wanted to go back to the other page where I told you I had, I heard these guys talk about, wrong one. Hopefully I'm sharing the right one now. Nope. I'm getting there. Right screen. From the Bright Divinity School from TCU. Oops. So have you ever heard of them, the Bright Divinity School?
Yes, at Texas Christian University. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they had one, they got a grant way back when, and there's this guy named Brickwater. So he wrote this article, but the Soul Repair founder is Rita Nikisha Brock, and she's a research professor in theology and culture at Bright Divinity School. She's the daughter of a veteran of the Korean War. So that's got to tell you something, that they took this very foundational moral and theologically based concept and be able to figure out, how do we minister to veterans who experience combat?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure I share this link out. Oops. I'm going to put it over there in the chat for everybody as well. So had you read this article?
No, I had not read it properly. I perused it. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think so. I heard these guys talk about it. I don't think I got to meet her specifically, but I met the guys who were going out and talking to the veteran population. And it really just kind of made sense to me that, and then I think this is pretty critical, just even the way you can read it in here. He says, but then they have to transition into civilian life, which has a different moral code than the military. They begin to feel uneasy or even guilty about the things they had to do. And even if it was their duty to do these things, it can make a person feel like a worthless human being that no one could possibly love anymore. And it leads to a state of despair or even depression and that kind of emotional pain. You remember one of the 4 pillars that I use in talking about from pain to purpose is emotional pain. It's the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Well, this is hitting on 2 of those legs of your chair that you're sitting on for stability, both the mental and the emotional side. Well, actually, I'm saying it wrong. It's really 3, right? It's a mental, emotional, and spiritual. You get 3 legs in play because of this issue that's going on. And how do you level that up to feel like you're on firm ground? In your experience, Darrell, as a chaplain, as a clinician, and in any of your other experiences in working with folks, how do you manage that, or what advice do you typically give men and women, because it's both sides, since all the roles are open for female veterans or female in the military? What do you tell them?
Well, actually, I'm probably different than most chaplains, coaches, mentors, and clinicians. In fact, that I do a lot of listening and hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I before I do that, though, I ask, can I take notes or record or both? And most of the insight that I receive from people who are going through moral injury is the pain that's associated with it, the not being able to talk about it the way they wanted to talk about it originally, the trust factor, the sometimes that the person who inflicted this particular moral injury upon them, they're still alive and they have not addressed what's going on with that. But more importantly for them, they're still, no matter what age they are as an adult, they're still afraid to even address it because
Oops.
you there?
Yep, I'm here.
They feel as though that, they feel as though that
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
I'm here, Eva.
Yeah.
In fact, I see two images of me. Can you see me now?
No, I only see a big circle.
Okay, I don't know. You can hear me though, right?
I can hear you. Keep on talking.
All right. So because the person feels, guilty because they weren't able to express this as a younger person,
Mm-hmm.
and then the person is still here and they still have not found the nerve or had an advantage to go speak to the person about these things. But more importantly, many times they feel that they're holding themselves hostage over what has occurred. And because they feel that way, they're in neutral. They can't go to first, they can't go to second, third, fourth, or certainly fifth. They can't even go in reverse. They're just in neutral because they feel devastated or decimated about what has actually occurred to them.
So it's not even, I think as I'm hearing you, part of me was like, is this a fight or flight or freeze or
fight, flight, or freeze?
Right. Does it fall in one of those categories of things? They're frozen. They remain frozen with that experience and not being able to move past it.
It's frozen in flight.
Oh wow, I haven't heard that context before. It's
frozen in flight. The flight is that if I happen to cross paths with this individual, or I'm crossing paths with these feelings that are unaccounted for, or they're unanswered, or I just don't want to, I'm fleeing from the scene. Frozen is that I'm feeling so caught up in this, I don't know what to do other than just stand here. They are proverbially the deer in the headlights.
Right.
We all, meaning you and I, we've talked about this. We know folk who they've had no one to talk to.
Right.
And now that they have someone to talk to about this or some other specific scenario, it's almost like they'll talk your ear off because they have to get it out. You're the closest thing they've ever had to speak, in depth about this. And then you see the depth of them being able to express themselves in ways that previously they weren't able to do so.
But they're still going to do what they can to avoid talking about the very topic that is wounding them the most.
Yes.
I'm going to do us both a favor. I'm going to go to commercial and maybe you can go out and come back in and see if that'll fix your video or something. Okay. We're going to go to commercial, guys. So this is Mitch Russell, A Soldier's Memoir.
Been home about 6 months now, and I still have my doubts. Well, I'm not sure how I got here or how I'm gonna get out. Well, my mama says I look the same as I did before I left. But if she could see inside of me, it would scare her to death. I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, it weighed a ton. And I see death in single thought. Well, they taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. Last Saturday they honored us in a small parade downtown. And when they shot off those fireworks, I nearly hit the ground. And while they smiled and cheered for us, all I could do was stare. 'Cause part of me is here at home, but part of me's back there. Well, I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, it weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. They taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. Yeah, there's no end in sight. 'Cause even though I'm home now, I'm still fighting for my life. Well, I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun, and I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run!" And I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, God, it weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. Well, they taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. Well, the devil's won some battles, and he may win some more, but don't he know the American soldier will always win the war?
Wow, that was an incredible video. I had not seen that one before. So Darrell, we're not seeing your video again. Hopefully we have audio for you. So welcome back, folks. I'm Eva Fulton, your host on the From Pain to Purpose radio show. And unfortunately, Darrell's been having some technical difficulties.
Don't blame that on me.
The gremlins are happening. Maybe this was a radio show that must be held, because man, I think the devil is trying to steal, kill, and destroy this message today. I think we're on the right topic. We're definitely on the right topic. And I think that video, I don't know how much you got to see of it, but I don't know that I could have picked a better video to choose to give us some IT time and get you replugged back in. But I'm here on the show with Chaplain Darrell Hartley, and we've been talking about, Terry says, there we see you. So it's been an interesting journey. Sometimes this happens. Darrell's guest hosting with me, where I was hoping we were going to be able to teach him some of the ins and outs, but the behind the scenes side of hosting a show, and he's getting to witness firsthand. Sometimes you just got to keep calling the audibles, You
do. Check into another play.
Yeah, it's all right. But we're discussing the new DSM designation for moral injury. And I started out the show, explaining everybody where my little boo-boo came from hiking on the trail, on the Appalachian Trail, the past couple of days. But that's a physical injury that that's obvious that people can see. But I think in some ways, like the way we were just watching that that beautiful video from the artist, conveying the message that there's the internal wounds that nobody else can see, that moral injury wounds that they haven't been able to unpack, I think is probably a good word. Do you like that word, unpack?
Yeah. You have to unpack. You have to fluff and fold and stow, put it away. Yeah, you have to do it.
Because sometimes it just ends up being that thing that you filed in the file drawer and forgot that it's there, but it keeps like, what is it that is like the gremlin that keeps trying to, hey, I'm still here. I'm an issue. Hey, I'm still here, an issue. And it's going to come out in your relationships with other people, at work, and with your children. It's going to come out in ways that you really don't want it to come out until you're forced to have to deal with those moral injury situations. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Right. It's like people who have junk drawers.
Mm-hmm.
You go to anyone's house, there's a junk drawer.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So until you say one day with your foot slammed down, I'm going to get rid of this junk drawer or these junk drawers, it'll be another day, another week, another month, another year, another decade, that stuff is still in there, not breathing. The batteries have,
it's hoarding. That's hoarding.
It is hoarding.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing what happens when we don't recognize and identify with definition what moral injury is. We don't understand the core emotional responses. We don't understand the affected populations, the pathways and triggers, the psychological impact, the healing and treatment. We don't do it because sometimes people confuse moral injury with PTS, and they're totally different.
Yeah, I like this one paragraph that I'm going to copy and put in the chat for everybody and then put it up on the screen, because I think it really is a pretty I want to say telling. I'm going to show this kind of emotional pain may not be part of post-traumatic stress disorder. What noise? I'm hearing some kind of extra noise. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt. A small group of doctors are now saying instead, feelings of anguish, shame, and betrayal are symptoms of what a growing number of medical professionals, military chaplains, and civilian ministers are calling moral injuries. Left unaddressed, the guilt that often haunts soldiers after combat, and civilians now, right, because that's what we are, can burden them for a lifetime, or in its severest form, destroy the will to live, leaving families and even communities devastated and certain how to cope. And I think that's pretty critical for us, knowing that September was just Suicide Prevention Month, that this is pretty timely for this to now be a DSM that's in effect. And now let's talk about that. How does that impact people who think that they have a moral injury, Darrell? What are they going to do with knowing that we now have this DSM? Are you there? Can you hear me? Oops. You may not be able to hear me, folks. Darrell?
Can you hear me, Eva?
I can hear you. Yeah. What does the DSM mean for folks now? You're on mute. Darrell. More gremlins. Sorry, folks. I think he's trying to reconnect or something. I can hear something. So I have the link up, guys, for this moral injury DSM from Harvard. I think I hear you in the background, Darrell. I don't know if you're walking around or something. Oh, we lost him. Hopefully he'll come back. So anyways, maybe I know there was even AI had an answer about moral injury, and they don't call it. I'm going to kind of go backwards. There he is. So I was going to show you this, and I don't know if how right this is, because AI is not always correct. But they say that moral injury is not currently recognized as a formal diagnosis in the DSM. However, it's gaining recognition, and maybe they just haven't updated the AI overview compared to what we're being shown that DSM is recognized as of September 2025. So I just want to make sure that, folks remember that sometimes AI gets it wrong too.
That is correct. They do.
I think they have it wrong this time. Yeah. It hasn't caught up with what the news cycle on these pages are saying, that it matters. So now that you're back on and we can see and hear you, what does DSM actually mean for folks who think that they have a moral injury? What do they do with that?
So when we talk about the DSM, now you have the DSM-TR as well, right? So it's a Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And it's our authoritative guide utilized by mental health professionals and other clinicians to diagnose and classify mental disorders. It's published by the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association, and it's currently in its fifth edition, known as the DSM-5 TR, text revision. And what it does, it provides standardized criteria for diagnosing conditions like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, ADHD, and hundreds more. And organizes disorders into categories: mood disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, trauma-related disorders, by also supporting clinical practice and research, and diagnostic clinical sets.
We lost your video again. I could hear you, but we lost your video again.
Did you hear what I said? It supports clinical practice and research. Yep. Includes diagnostic criteria sets, and it also provides, in many places, descriptive text for treatment guidelines often.
So a soldier, a veteran, can take this when they're talking to their counselor at the VA or whoever they've been referred to, and explain about how they are struggling with this moral injury aspect.
No, it's not a treatment manual. It's strictly for diagnosis, and it differs. I just put it out there. You asked the question. I'm trying to answer. It differs from the ICD, the International Classification of Diseases, which is globally utilized. It includes both mental and physical health conditions. But the DSM is strictly for diagnosis. So if the person is talking to their clinician or a primary care physician about this, it's based on what they were diagnosed with.
All right. So pretend I'm a combat veteran. Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with some things that probably are in my background. If I'm somebody who was in Iraq or Afghanistan and I've seen and done things that I'm struggling with reconciling my faith with what I've done. So that difference between right and wrong, knowing that I followed what my commander was telling me to do, but I had to do some bad things that I didn't like doing. What do they do about it?
Well, the first thing they would have to do is they probably would ask to see, normally, they would ask to see a chaplain, and hopefully the chaplain is also a clinician, where the chaplain could actually have a discussion about what is moral,
Mhm.
amoral, or immoral. And then also bring the classification of what's been diagnosed into the fore.
All right. So before you get too far, define amoral, immoral, and moral.
So sometimes
we have to assume that not everybody knows these
I
words.
I understand.
Yeah.
Right. So what ends up happening is, they're all similar, but they're totally different. So amoral refers to a lack of concern for morality. So it describes somebody or something or someone that is indifferent to right and wrong or unconcerned with moral standards. It doesn't mean they're actively bad, which would be immoral, but rather unaware or uninterested in moral principles. So you have amoral, which lacks moral awareness or concern, and you have immoral that violates moral principles.
Okay.
And then moral is doing everything you're supposed to do correctly.
That makes sense. But then they still have to figure out how to unpack that, and how does it fit in the context of moral injury?
Well, according to the DSM-5, is that the person is responsible for what has happened to them or what is happening around them, which means this: if bombs are bursting in the air and they're hitting the ground, that's not their fault. They just happen to be there. But often what happens is that person or those people, those individuals and groups, they do blame themselves for someone else getting hurt, someone getting mangled, someone getting killed, whatever the case may be. And then they're carrying that associated guilt along with them.
Yeah.
So when you are diagnosed with trauma, according to DSM-5, and you start understanding what its purpose is, what the content is, what does it cover, what are the basics, what are the emerging measures and models and such, and then you find out all these other things that go along with it: schizophrenia, delusional disorders, bipolar, anxiety disorders, separation anxiety, all
survival guilt is part of that too, right?
Yes.
Survivor's guilt.
That was the next one. One. So for me, I'm thinking they also lead to obsessive compulsive disorder, hoarding, body disorder, and all sorts of things. Now, some people can do this too. And you may have seen this in the field or in your experience in the military. People start picking at their skin.
Yeah.
Skin picking disorders and
or they
self-harming.
They're cutters, right?
They're cutters, yes. So what do? We do our very best to get those people the care that they need, not because it's important to us, it's important to them, because that's a behavior that can manifest into something else. So
but then I'm also thinking from that standpoint, you're not always gonna go seek help yourself. You may need somebody else that's going to help lead you to that water, but it's still up to you to drink the water.
Yes. And I'm also thinking that under the best set of circumstances, Sister Eva, that is absolutely positively correct. You can provide them the preeminent information ever recorded, and assist them in applying it to their lives. Unless they're willing, ready, and able to ensure that it occurs properly, it won't.
Right. And they can't, it's, that's where I think the practice of having your chaplain that can help guide you through the moral, how do you, it's one from that faith side is giving yourself some grace and learning how to forgive yourself for what you had to do. Because, I'm going to use a phrase and it's applicable, but I don't necessarily believe in Darwinism, but it is a bit of survival of the fittest. It is kill or be killed. And sometimes there is that certain essence of self-preservation on the battlefield, that there is that moral injury that you either kill or be killed.
So as a chaplain,
I
would want to be radically present, which means being in need by that person who will simply allow me to assist them with their pain, confusion, or joy. You know, with silence, eye contact, and other attentive listening that can be more than just healing words. And
Right.
then practice that active listening and reflecting back on what I hear. Ask open-ended questions and avoid rushing to fix or advise. And as I've always told you, I don't provide advice. I give counsel. Counsel is proven, advice is suspect.
That makes sense though, because if you gave me advice to do something, well, what if it's the wrong thing? I still made the choice to go do it. So all you could do is really counsel. Here are some options. I still have to make the best choice for me.
Yes. And we spoke earlier today about
Yeah.
what's your greatest gift, what's your greatest superpower.
Yeah, you want me to tell you about that again?
Yes, come on.
Yeah, so some years ago, I met this neat older man. I was doing some multi-level marketing stuff. He was from Amway. So, he had to have been at least in his 70s or so, but he was interested in meeting me. What was I selling and who was I? It was in the local town and he was, who's in his backyard. So, but he could tell I'm wearing my cross and, I am a veteran because it's all over my vehicle and everything. But he asked me, so what is your most powerful, what's your most powerful gift? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, what's your greatest gift? And I thought a moment and reflected. And I said, I think that my greatest gift is the power of prayer. And he's, wasn't poo-pooing me. He said, it's a really good answer, but I beg to differ. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, your ability to choose to pray was a secondary thing because it took having a choice to begin with. Choice is your greatest power. You have the power to choose any of your actions. And I was like, that has just stuck with me all this time. I tell it over and over again, it's the power to choose. It is, whether we chose to join the military, when we chose to get out, sometimes that's a little bit involuntary, like mine, because it was a medical, but it's the power to choose. I have the choice to go hiking or not. I have the choice to lay on the couch or be a bump on the log. We all have the power to choose. It takes that power choice to decide whether I'm going to understand that this is a moral injury and now I've got to unpack it. And now I've got to deal with it because it's not going anywhere. I'm still carrying it around. And that other story I was telling you about was about rocks. And, we can carry these rocks. It's a choice to keep carrying these wounds around with us. And they're my invisible wounds that I see, right? If this is my wound and I keep carrying this wound and this wound and this wound, well, that gets heavy after a while. And it keeps me and my mind and my heart free from being able to do other things that I really could be doing in a more positive way because I'm so stuck on holding on to these wounds. At some point, I have to let them go.
Well, that is wonderful. No, that is wonderful and it's the truth. But just to tighten it up just a bit.
Yep.
With moral injury, the mental health aspect of it is just as important as the physical well-being.
Yeah.
The mental health experts, the professionals, can assist individuals who are afflicted with moral injury to live the fullest life possible.
I think one of the things that I struggle with when, Darrell, when I hear people talking that they've gone to talk to to their psychiatrist or psychologist, whoever, is they keep having to repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. Does that really help?
Normally, Eva, that's because that's what they come in with, right? And a mental health clinician or a human services clinician, our role is to actively listen and take notes and call people on their stuff, because sometimes people come on with their own agendas, right? But if we have a 30, a 45, or 60-minute session, I'm not going to allow you to commandeer the session.
But if you're
But
if you're that counselor that can't remember what you talked about the last time, and you're saying, well, start at the beginning again. This is the 15th time that's
television and the movies. You already have your notes in front of you from the last session or the previous sessions, and you can go back and reframe what has occurred. If they don't remember, it is your responsibility as their counselor, as the person who's in charge of that particular therapeutic community, to refresh them and bring them back. If they still have no recollection of what's going on, they're trusting you enough to come in for their appointment. They remember to come in for the appointment, so they're trusting you enough to even go back over what has occurred previously, maybe up to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks.
I think what I've heard from the veterans is they get frustrated that they are being asked to repeat themselves over and over again and not moving forward. So it's almost like the way they're describing it is that the counselor is stuck on making you repeat, even though the veteran is wanting to, can we like come back up to, this event and not start at zero again?
This is what I know. This isn't television or the movies. This isn't a podcast. This is real life that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But for me, and that's why I say I know I'm different than most people. My objective is to get you off of medication. My objective is to listen to you, that you can live a freer, clearer life, that you can gain clarity and closure with this. I don't want to ask you the same questions over and over, because then I'm feeling that I'm ineffective as a counselor doing that, right? I want you to have free reign to ask any questions. If you just want to talk about what happened last night, because it does relate to why we're actually here, then we can do that. But at some point, I have to get into the meat of why we're actually here.
Right. Because otherwise, we're just wasting each other's time.
And that happens too much and too often.
Yeah, I think that's where people get frustrated that they're not getting the help that they really need. But I also think in some ways, the fact that they are now, recognizing DSM, moral injury in the DSM is a big thing for the veteran community, because now this is in some ways like even for, the Gulf War side of things, that there's somebody has connected the dots, and we're validating that there is an issue from the moral side of things. It's not going to be ignored anymore.
Sure.
What is it? Even going back to think about it from World War II, Korea and Vietnam, they called them war wounds. Oh, battle fatigue, right? That wasn't the name, battle fatigue.
It was PTS.
Yeah, it really was PTS.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But now we have, I think, a little bit better definition of what that battle fatigue is. That it's moral injury, that they have, there is this morality context side of it to help people understand that's why they're feeling so conflicted with it and can't unpack it in a normal way. It's not a wound that you can just put a patch on and say, okay, that's going to heal in 2 weeks and you'll be good as new.
So one of my favorite professors ever, Dr. Philip Philippoussis, Miss Travers, she was the 3rd grade. She's my probably, it's 1A. And Dr. Philippoussis says, life is not a zit that you can pop.
Right.
Life is something that's ongoing. And once you pop the zit will heal. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is connected with your life will.
Right.
So here we go. The DSM-5 is difficult for some other people because it's a very technical publication. You really must be a medical professional to decipher some of the terms, phrases, and such. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't integrate your clinical skill with compassion. We have to treat the person as a whole person. We've got to go beyond the symptoms. We got to consider the emotional, spiritual, and social dimensions of the health. We got to utilize trauma-informed care. We got to recognize how past trauma can affect current health behaviors and responses to the treatment. And we got to ask questions that's going to be beneficial to the person. Wait a minute, in real time right now, what happened last week and the week before and 2 months ago, it's not actually applicable because today's a new day and something probably happened en route to the visit. So
we've got 5 minutes left in the show, Darrell. Can veterans or soldiers take this kind of documentation that we've been sharing from APA, from Harvard, or the article from TCU talking, from Bright Divinity talking about the soul repair? Can they actually, just like we do on the physical side, hey, here's a study, here's some documentation to share with their, counselor and say, hey, can I help you? This is what I'm struggling with. Can that help them have better conversations with their counselors?
Any documentation, any peer review that you can take into your counselor or the person in charge of your therapeutic community or your primary care physician even, that's only going to assist them in allocating positive treatment for you. So
because then they can focus on better treatment. Yes. That's more narrowly focused about what your issues are and not trying to apply, a little strip Band-Aid to a bigger issue and think, well, let's see what's going to stick.
Well, I would say this too. We have to continue to, with our clients, our patients. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're both, they're dual roles. We have to communicate with clarity and empathy. And we got to explain things with kindness. We got to hold space for uncertainty. And we as clinicians have to stay curious and reflective because things are always ongoing with treatments and such. And the questions are going to become more and more reflective in what we're trying to do in reflective, engaging practice. And we need to be able to go and seek feedback from our peers as well as the patients to let them know that we do care about them. We care about how this makes them feel. And we want to continue to build trust and growth with them.
I think part of it that we haven't quite touched on, we got 3 minutes. Well, really only have 2 minutes. Have to do the closeout video, minute and a half. We also need to refer people to actually go talk to your minister, go talk to your chaplain, because chances are what you're really seeking is maybe some answers in the Bible to how to digest that, from a religious, I want to say religious, but it's really a Bible-based context.
And we advocate for patient dignity by working with the ministerial community. We work with chaplains. We work with social workers. We work with mental health professionals because holistic care thrives in a team environment.
So we don't have much time left. I'm gonna, start beginning some of the closeout on the show. Coming up in the future, like I started at the beginning, is Raleigh for Vets. I'll be remote next weekend. That'll be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. I get to be behind the wheel, Darrell. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Watch out, track. Here I come.
Yeah, who knew?
So Brian Sims was going to be joining us October 18th. Bryce Hansen on the 25th. Ricky Ritchie November 1st. Remote again. November 8th. I might have to have you sub in that afternoon on November 8th. And Brian Gibson on the 15th, Doug Peterson, one of the locals in your area, November 22nd. And I'm trying to get my son to join me on the 29th for his birthday because he was a dependent. So thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate everybody. And we'll be seeing more of Darrell on the show with us. So y'all have a great week and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, We want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.